Hey guys, today is the day that Chicken Nugget has been looking forward to. We're talking about the gold rush. Yay! Our objective question today: what effects did the gold rush have on the United States? Okay, so remember that California, it's this kind of chunk of territory over here. And after the Mexican-American War, it's an area that the United States is going to occupy until we officially gain that territory with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo that you learned about yesterday. All right, so California is officially a territory of the United States. It's not a state yet. Remember, in order to be a state, you have to have a certain population. Based on the amount of Americans that are in that area at this point, there's not enough to have a state yet. But it is an area that the United States now controls, and there's lots of good stuff going on there. Eventually, in Sonoma, California, gold is accidentally discovered. And when I say accidentally discovered, I mean they weren't looking for it. They were trying to, dig for other resources, and it turns out that, oh, cool, there's also gold here. Now, smartly, the landowner tried to keep it a secret because he didn't want a bunch of people coming onto his land and taking the gold, but the secret eventually gets out. You know how rumors work. And eventually all of the United States, and then eventually the rest of I'll say the world, but like China and like Europe, hear about this. They hear that there's tons and tons of gold in the California hills, and the first person to get there gets the gold. So a lot of people are going to start to kind of become interested in possibly going to California and mining for gold. The gold rush attracts thousands and thousands of people from all over the world. As I mentioned, China is going to have a lot of immigration to the California area because of this. Europeans are going to come all the way from Europe, and of course, tons and tons of Americans are going to travel from the middle of America and the east coast of America to the west coast, specifically the California territory, looking to strike it rich. Now, there's a couple different ways you can get there. A majority of Americans are going to take those Oregon and California trails we talked about a few days ago. These can be dangerous. They take a long time, but it's pretty much your straightest shot. If you want to charter a ship, you can have a ship take you all the way around here, which takes forever, very dangerous. There's bad weather and pirates around Cape Horn. Or if you have a lot of money, you can get on a ship and sail down to right around here where the two continents connect very, very thinly, and you can traverse this land and get on another ship on the other side and sail the rest of the way. So that's the more expensive route. But anyway, lots of ways to get there. A majority of people are going to use the land routes, as we see here, right? So these trails, we use mostly the Oregon Trail, right? And then all of a sudden we break wild and go to the California Trail, which is the extension of the Oregon Trail that takes us to California where the gold is. Now, the people who start flooding to California in 1849 are referred to as the 49ers, because that's the year. So if I ever ask you what year was the California Gold Rush, you remember 1849 because of the 49ers, right? Now, a successful farmer in the United States may make $300 a year, right? To put it into perspective, right, if you mine for gold, right, there's a chance you could get up to $25 a day, right? So there's a ridiculous amount of riches to be had if you're a lucky gold miner. It is appealing to people who at this point are making, very, very slim livings otherwise. This chance to strike it rich, it's kind of like playing the lottery, right? You know that there's a chance you won't win, but if you do, it's really, really, really going to pay off. And this is so attractive to so many people that, people begin to rush in. Now, there's a lot of like little gold flakes and stuff. What you really want to find is a golden nugget, right? That's when you get some legit gold. But a majority of people who come for the gold rush are not going to find much. Eventually, enough people are going to show up and they're going to dig through the dirt, and eventually the gold's all going to be gone. Some people are starting their journey, right? And by the time they get there, people have been mining in this area for months and months and months, and all the gold is gone. So most of them were not successful. Most of them ended up going home and giving up. Chinese, as I mentioned, are going to see the gold rush as a great opportunity, not just to discover gold in America, but also to get out of the conditions they're living in China. There's a lot of war and poverty going on in China, and the American gold rush is a perfect opportunity to, leave. Europeans and Latin Americans are also going to seek riches. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Of course, the immigrants are going to be faced with discrimination, right? Nativists are going to say, hey, this is America's land, even though it was kind of Mexico's land, like not so long ago. Still, the Americans are going to say, this is our land, get off. If there is any gold here, it belongs to us. So, once again, immigrants facing discrimination. Now, what's really interesting about the gold rush is some of the most successful people of the gold rush didn't actually mine for gold. Samuel Brannan, for example, he realizes that if there are thousands and thousands of people flocking to this area to mine for gold, instead of mining for gold myself, why don't I sell the miners the goods they're going to need? Because these farmers and immigrants are not showing up with all of the mining tools they're going to need. They're going to have to buy them at some point. So why don't I just make it my mission to sell those goods to them for a profit, and I'll make a ton of money because I have guaranteed customers. And that's what he does, and he becomes California's first millionaire. So pretty smart and savvy there. J.A. Folger is going to say, hey, mining for gold's not really up to me, but instead I'm going to found a coffee firm, and I'm going to make coffee for all the miners who are tired and stuff like that and need the caffeine, and that's where Folger's Coffee comes from. So once again, another successful. And then last, Levi Strauss says, listen, these miners are digging in the dirt. They don't need nice fabric pants. What they need is some good old denim pants. And he invents and sells the first blue jeans, which is where Levi jeans come from. So these really, really famous people, Folger and Levi specifically, names we hear today still, some of the most successful success stories of the gold rush don't actually have to deal with finding gold. Instead, they capitalized on the market that they saw. What's going to happen? A majority of 49ers are going to show up and flock to San Francisco. The population of non-natives is going to rapidly explode. We're up to 36,000 in the immediate years after the gold rush begins. Of course, this is why today the NFL team, the San Francisco 49ers, are called the 49ers, because 1849 was a big year for the city. They become, an epicenter of multiple different cultures. That's another really fascinating thing. If you've ever been to San Francisco, there's a wide variety of people that live there. It's very diverse, and this is one of those reasons. Tons and tons of immigrants during this time, tons of people from all over the country are going to flock and live in this area. So cool little factoid there. And then, of course, possibly the most important aspect of the gold rush is that it leads to statehood for California. It would have taken a while for California to get enough population to become a state, at least American population, but that doesn't end up being a problem, because by 1850, California is going to become a state. Now remember, if you remember anything from our last couple lessons, you know that when you let in a state, it's very important to decide whether or not that state is going to be free or a slave state. Especially since California is so large, they're going to have a lot of representation. So it's really important to decide whether or not they'll be free or slave. Unfortunately for the Southerners, and fortunately for the Northerners, California is going to enter as a free state, which means there's going to be no slavery allowed. This is interesting because it's on both sides of that slavery line that got drawn by that compromise we learned about. Half of it is in the free section, half of it's in the slave section. So this is going to lead to problems, and we'll talk more about that next week. But just for now, remember that California entering is going to disrupt that even number we had before of free and slave states. Lastly, Comstock Lode is going to be discovered. This is in the Nevada, Utah area. Once again, not states yet, but territories of the United States. And silver is going to be discovered in 1859. So 10 years later, we're going to have a silver rush. This silver rush is going to be exactly like the gold rush, only people are rushing for silver. Silver's still a very, very nice commodity to have, and it's going to be the gold rush all over again. This is going to be the official end date for the gold rush and start a silver rush, which in turn is of course going to lead to the statehood of many more states, including Nevada, Utah, and a few other areas. Alrighty, that's it for today. Make sure to answer your objective question, and I will see you later. Bye bye.